He shuffled through the door, his old jeans sagging on a frame that time had weathered but not broken, a flannel shirt clinging to him like a memory, and boots, oh, those boots, older than the cocky kid snickering behind the firing line. Dust-caked and cracked, they whispered of miles marched under a merciless sun. His hands, trembling ever so slightly, set his rifle case on the bench with a quiet dignity that made you wonder, what stories did those hands hold? When he popped the latches, a faint cloud of dust swirled up, like the ghost of years long past escaping into the air. "Hope he's not planning to shoot that old thing," one of the young bucks whispered, his voice dripping with mockery, loud enough to spark chuckles from his pals. But the old man? He didn't even glance their way. With slow, deliberate grace, he pieced together his rifle, each motion a testament to a lifetime of practice. Then, as if the moment itself demanded it, he rolled up his sleeve, and there it was. A glint of metal that snuffed out their laughter like a candle in the wind. A silver star, pinned humbly to his vest pocket, shining with a quiet pride that screamed louder than any boast ever could. Can you imagine the weight of that metal, earned not in glory, but in blood and grit? Welcome to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories. Here, tales of courage and kindness pierce through the shadows, illuminating the raw, beating heart of humanity. Are you ready to dive into what really happened that day? Trust me, this is a story that'll grip your soul and linger long after the last echo fades. The range buzzed with its usual chaos, spent casings clattering against concrete, the sharp crack of rifles splitting the air, instructors barking orders that bounced off the walls. Saturdays were different, though, looser, wilder. Civilians strutted in with permits clutched tight, reservists drilled to keep their edge, and young hotshots swaggered through in packs, itching to outshoot each other for nothing more than bragging rights. That morning, Lane 4 was a circus of arrogance. 3 guys, barely pushing 30, decked out in tactical tees and gear so fresh it still smelled of the store, unpacked rifles that gleamed like they'd never tasted dirt. Their optics sparkled, untouched by wear, and their magazines lined up like trophies on parade. They tossed around terms like windage and velocity, their voices loud and brash, as if the words alone could carve their names into history. Then it happened, a soft thud of a truck door closing outside. Head swiveled lazily, and there he stood, a tall, thin silhouette against the morning light, moving slow but steady toward the benches. He wasn't hunched, no, not this man, but every step carried a weight you couldn't see, a burden etched into his bones. What had he seen, this quiet figure in faded blue jeans and a flannel shirt buttoned to the collar? His boots crunched faintly, trailing desert dust that told tales of places these kids couldn't even dream of. A worn brown cap sat low on his head, the U.S. Army patch clinging to life by frayed threads, a relic of a past they'd never understand. In his grip was a rifle case, its black plastic scuffed and dulled by time, a silent partner to a life of purpose. He didn't ask for space, didn't demand attention, just stepped into lane 6, far from the others, and set the case down with a care that felt almost sacred. The lock snapped open, a sound that cut through the range's din like a held breath. Inside lay a long-range bolt-action rifle, weathered but fierce. Paint chipped near the trigger guard, the barrel refinished twice over, yet the wooden stock stood firm, and the bolt glistened with fresh oil. This wasn't just a gun, it was a piece of him, a companion through hell and back. 2 lanes over, the smirk started. "Is that a Springfield?" one of them snorted. "Hope he's not here for time drills." Their laughter rang out, sharp and careless, but the old man didn't flinch. He checked the chamber with a steady hand, wiped the scope with a tattered bandana, and laid out his rounds, brass-cased, heavy, each one placed like an offering to something greater. Who was this guy, ignoring their taunts with such calm? Then, as if by chance, he tugged at his shirt, and the wind caught it just right. A ribbon flashed, pinned inside his pocket, crowned with a small silver star, aged, edges softened, but unmistakable. A silver star. He didn't flaunt it, didn't need to. It was there, a quiet mark of courage that hit harder than any shout. Jensen, the young range assistant, barely 19, still green from training, spotted it first. His jaw dropped, eyes wide. He knew that medal from the binder they'd studied, a rare honor for gallantry in combat. How many living souls still carried one? And here it was, tucked away like a secret on this unassuming old man. Jensen's whole stance shifted, reverence replacing routine. The hotshots didn't notice, too busy slapping backs and crowing over mid-range hits that wouldn't impress a rookie. But Jensen watched, rooted, as the old man eased into position, his body melding with the rifle like they were one. The range hushed for a heartbeat, then boom. His first shot ripped through the air, crisp and commanding, a sound that carried the weight of mastery. Steel sang far past the 200-meter mark, a perfect strike. He didn't cheer, didn't pause. Just chambered another round like it was as natural as breathing and fired again. Another hit. Lane 4 fell silent, their bravado crumbling. "Who the hell is that guy?" one muttered, peering over, awe creeping into his voice. The oldest of them squinted, stunned. "He's shooting without a spotter," hit the 300-meter plate without a tweak. Shot after shot landed true, each one a thunderclap of skill forged in fire. By the 7th, the range was transformed. The mocking was gone, swallowed by a silence thick with respect. The young guns fiddled with their gear, eyes darting, humbled. Jensen couldn't stay back any longer. He edged over, clipboard trembling in his hands, as the old man reloaded, fingers shaky not from age, but from memories too heavy to name. His eyes, though, were a sea of calm, deep with battles won. "Sir," Jensen whispered, voice barely there, "need help with target resets?" The old man looked up, blue eyes piercing yet kind. "No, son," he rasped, gravel in his tone, "but thank you." Jensen hesitated, then blurted, "Saw your ribbon. Silver." "It's an honor, sir." A nod was all he got, but oh, what a nod, simple, profound, a bridge between generations. Then, a voice from Lane 4 cut in, brash but faltering, "Must have gotten that in Korea, huh?" A weak laugh followed, but it died fast. Jensen stiffened, ready to snap, but the old man spoke first, steady as stone. "Korea? No, too young. Iraq, Najaf, 2004, 5th day of the siege. Took 2 rounds through the plate, carried my captain out under fire." The words landed like a grenade, quiet but explosive. The air grew heavy, every soul feeling the echo of that day. One kid glanced at the rifle, spotting notches on the stock, 7, each a silent tale. He adjusted his sight, settled in, and fired once more. The 400-meter gong rang out, a note that seemed to ripple through time itself. Then he packed up, each move deliberate, the case closing with a finality that stung the heart. As he rose, his presence filled the space, not loud, not showy, but undeniable. The Lane 4 crew watched, their swagger long gone. He'd come, he'd shot, and he'd changed them without a word. He walked to the exit, steps unhurried, the door swinging wide to let him melt into the sunlight. The range exhaled, different now, subdued, reverent. Jensen lingered by the door, replaying it all, knowing he'd just brushed greatness. The room fell silent, utterly, breathtakingly silent. Even the jokers, those quick-witted souls who always had a quip at the ready, stood speechless, their usual banter swallowed by the moment. One of them cast his eyes back to the rifle, his gaze lingering on the wood stock where 7 subtle notches were carved. 7. Not flashy, not boastful, just there, etched into the grain like whispers of a past too heavy to voice. What battles did those marks carry? What lives did they guard? The old man, unfazed by the stillness, adjusted his sight with a calm that felt almost sacred, went prone once more, and fired. The 400-meter gong sang out, a glorious, resonant clang like a bell in a cathedral, its echo rippling through the air. What a shot! It wasn't just skill, it was a testament, a communion between man and metal forged in trials we could only imagine. The old man packed his rifle slowly, deliberately, as if every motion held a piece of his soul. This wasn't just the end of a session, oh no, it was something more, a ritual sealed as he folded cloth over cold steel, tucking away a lifetime of purpose. With weathered hands, steady despite the years, he wiped each piece clean, the cloth moving with reverence over the barrel. The bolt slid back into place with a firm, decisive click, a sound that rang with finality, like a door closing on a chapter. He shut the case with care, his fingers lingering on the latch a moment longer than necessary, resting there as if reluctant to let go. His face didn't betray exhaustion, but something deeper, reflection, perhaps. Was he done shooting forever, or just for today? You could feel the weight of that pause, heavy with unspoken stories. Over at Lane 4, the three younger men couldn't stop stealing glances. Their earlier swagger had evaporated, replaced by a silence that stretched beyond awkward into something reverent, almost holy. Their weapons lay untouched, ammunition still snug in its boxes, as if firing now would profane the moment. The one who'd laughed first, the loudest, the boldest, sat hushed on his bench, his eyes fixed on the old man's gear with a mix of awe and shame. He leaned toward his friend and whispered, voice barely a breath, that grouping at 400? Tighter than anything I've ever seen here, ever. The other didn't reply, he was too busy watching the old man's arm as he stretched, the flannel sleeve sliding down just enough to reveal a glimpse of history stitched into the fabric. Jensen caught it too, not the silver star this time, but something older, something more intimate. Sewn into the inside hem of the flannel, right where chest met shoulder, was a strip of desert camouflage, hand-stitched with faded names that time had softened but not erased. One name stood out, bold against the wear, CPTD, Howard, Kia. Jensen's breath hitched. That name. He'd heard it before, spoken in hushed reverence at last year's memorial by Captain Garretson, the instructor who'd served under Howard in Iraq. And here it was, carried on this old man's chest like a promise kept across decades. Can you imagine the burden of that thread, the weight of memory woven into every stitch? The old man hoisted the rifle case over his shoulder, a silent partner to a life of duty, and nodded once to Jensen, a gesture so simple yet so profound it felt like a blessing. He moved toward the door, his pace unhurried, his back still straight as a soldier's, his composure unshaken by age or scrutiny. But just before he could cross the threshold, the range door swung open from the other side, and in stepped Captain Garretson himself. He wasn't in uniform today, just a clipboard in hand, mind half lost in some mundane task. He almost didn't look up, until their eyes met, and Garretson froze, as if the ground itself had trembled beneath him. The clipboard slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor with a sound that shattered the stillness. He took a single, unsteady step forward, his body reacting before his mind could catch up. His jaw clenched, and when he spoke, his voice cracked through the air like a soldier snapping to attention, Staff Sergeant Allen. The old man didn't reply, he just held Garretson's gaze, calm, solid, a pillar of quiet strength. What must it have felt like, to see a ghost from the past stand before you, alive and real? Garretson crossed the lane slowly now, each step deliberate, as if approaching a shrine. He didn't care about the eyes on him, didn't notice the three young shooters standing rigid, their earlier bravado reduced to dust. His hand lifted, not quite a salute, but a gesture to steady himself, as if the past had just marched out of a war zone into this ordinary room. I thought you were gone, he said, his voice breaking, raw with emotion. Can you hear the tremor in those words, the years of guilt and gratitude spilling out at once? Allen spoke at last, his voice low and steady, cutting through the tension like a blade. I was, until I wasn't. Garretson stepped closer, closing the gap between them. You saved my life in Najaf. I never got to say it. Allen met his eyes, unmoved by the praise, his humility as steadfast as his courage. We all saved someone. Some of us just didn't come back. Oh, the power in that simplicity, words so plain yet so piercing, they left the room breathless. The silence grew thick, suffocating, as if no one dared disturb the sanctity of what had just been said. Garretson turned to the others, his voice steady now but trembling with reverence. "Gentlemen, this man is why I'm still breathing." Staff Sergeant Allen earned the Silver Star on the 5th day of the Najaf siege. He carried 3 wounded men, 3, across an open courtyard under fire, including me. He didn't wait for medics, didn't wait for cover. He moved because others couldn't. Each word struck like a hammer, forging awe and respect in the hearts of everyone there. Jensen felt those words sink deep, heavy as iron anchoring into the floor. Garretson faced Allen again, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "They built a wall back at the base with the names of everyone who served there. Your name never made it." Allen's response was quiet, unflinching. "I know." Garretson's voice softened, almost a plea. Would you let us at it now?" Allen didn't answer with words. He set the rifle case down gently, opened his shirt flap with careful fingers, and pulled out a small laminated card, an old ID, its edges worn, its text faded. No expiration, no rank, just a name and a photo from 20 years ago, a younger Allen staring back with a firm jaw and sharp eyes, alive with the fire of purpose. He handed it to Garretson with a quiet dignity that spoke louder than any speech. "Use that," he said simply. Then he lifted his case, nodded once more, a farewell wrapped in that single motion, and headed for the door. As he passed the young men at lane 4, they stood tall, arms stiff at their sides like cadets caught off guard by greatness. None saluted, but one stepped forward silently and held the exit door open. Allen paused, giving the man a look, not of thanks, but of understanding, a silent passing of something unnameable. Then he stepped into the daylight and was gone, no fanfare, no applause, just the weight of his absence filling the room. No one spoke after the door clicked shut. That sound, louder than gunfire, louder than the gong's last ring, echoed with a finality that shifted something deep in the air. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, but it was powerful, a quiet respect that arrived too late to be declared yet too strong to be ignored. The young men didn't touch their weapons. Their gear sat abandoned on the benches, magazines half-loaded, optics unadjusted, as if firing now would be an insult to what they'd witnessed. The easy confidence they'd strutted in with an hour ago had vanished, replaced by a stillness that felt sacred. One stared at the rifle he'd saved months to buy, its shine suddenly dim, as if it hadn't earned the weight he'd given it. Another packed his bag in silence, his hands moving with care, as if afraid to break the spell. Captain Garretson sat behind his office desk, the faded ID cradled in both hands. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared at that younger Allen, firm-jawed and sharp-eyed, a man who'd faced death and walked away. His grip tightened, not in anger but in reverence, as if holding a piece of history too precious to let go. Can you feel the gravity of that moment, the truth stepping out of the shadows after years of silence? Jensen lingered by the back wall, rooted to the spot, his heart pounding with a mix of awe and humility. He couldn't name what he felt, only that it would stay with him forever, the gravel-worn voice, the names stitched into fabric, the silver star hidden in a shirt pocket. It wasn't just what Allen had done, it was how he'd done it, without fanfare, without demand, a quiet strength that reshaped the room. Later, after the lanes were cleared and the brass swept away, Jensen drifted to the range's memorial wall, a patchwork of names, signatures, and quotes scrawled in black Sharpie by those who'd earned their place. A corner stood empty, untouched, as if waiting. He stood there, marker in hand, then wrote 5 words, "Some speak without saying anything." He capped the pen, stepped back, and left. No one erased it. No one dared. Those words became part of the wall, a tribute to a man who taught without preaching. In the days and weeks that followed, every shooter who passed through stopped at that corner. Some saluted, some stood in silence, but all remembered the day they'd laughed at the quiet man who changed everything. He didn't demand respect, he earned it, showing up, holding steady, carrying a weight most will never fathom. He didn't raise his voice, but when he lifted that rifle, the room transformed. There are men who boast of their deeds, and then there are those who bear them silently until they speak for themselves. And when they do, it's a whisper that roars. Real heroes don't always match the picture, they don't stride in with medals gleaming or uniforms crisp. They arrive in worn boots, with quiet eyes and a past that sneaks up on you until it's too loud to miss. So, tell me, who's the quietest person you've known, the one who left the deepest mark without a word? Share their name below. Tell their story. Keep them alive in memory, even if they never asked for it. This story it's about an old veteran who walks into a shooting range, silver star tucked humbly in his pocket, and turns mockery into reverence without saying a damn word. That gets me. In a society obsessed with shouting your worth, Instagram likes, TikTok clout, endless self-promotion, Alan's silence screams louder than anything. He didn't need to flex his bravery, he lived it. And that's a lifestyle we've lost, one where actions, not words, define you. It's humbling, and honestly, it makes me mad at how shallow we've become. The way those young shooters judged him. That stings. They saw an old man, not a hero, and laughed, until his skill shut them up. How often do we do that? Dismiss the weathered, the quiet, because they don't fit our glossy idea of value? It's a social sickness, this rush to judge, and this story rips it open. I felt their embarrassment, and mine too, for every time I've overlooked someone's depth because they didn't shine on the surface. And Alan's humility, God, it's beautiful and heartbreaking. He carried his captain's memory, not for praise, but because it mattered. That's real sacrifice, the kind veterans know too well, and it demands respect we rarely give. This story isn't just about one man, it's a mirror. It dares us to live quieter, judge slower, and honor the unsung. I'm left aching to be better, to see past the noise and find the strength in stillness. And if this tale stirred you, if you believe dignity still holds power and true heroes wear their honor in silence, subscribe to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories. Here, we don't drown out our veterans with noise. We listen.